Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is an actual update on an update. After I uploaded the recent video, the neighbor who lives upstairs, not over us but on the other side, he rapped at our door, and he works security. And he was still in uniform. He had literally just got home from work, had his gun, everything. And he asked us about this letter, and I said, well, everybody got one. So we were talking. Come to find out, definitely sketchy is the word for this whole transaction. What happened with whoever was outside, with whatever they were doing today. Apparently, this guy who was in our house last week and was telling us about these new leases and everything. Well, he didn't tell us that his sister bought the property, but yet he told the neighbor that his sister bought the property. And he said that he was going to be the manager. He's supposed to be from Massachusetts. His plate on his car says Massachusetts, but his cell phone number says New York. And apparently, Tony had wanted him to pay the rent before the 1st, and Jeff couldn't because he didn't get paid until the 3rd, which didn't make him very happy. Apparently, Jeff didn't pay the rent, and the property, he says the property sold on the 1st. I said I was told it was the 3rd. Either way, Tony, from what I understand, was supposed to turn all that over to the new owner, and apparently he may not have. So that's something that could be a legal issue here too. Also, this guy that was working outside the building today, apparently he was here about 2 weeks ago doing something with the breaker box. And again, I don't know what this guy will be doing. That isn't the guy that Tony had to hire to do something for code before the building sold. He had to have somebody install something on the breaker box because otherwise, where the outlet is in the kitchen by the sink would have had to be cut and made bigger or something, and that would have had to been done in all 4 apartments. So I don't know. There's just so much, and from talking to a neighbor tonight, it's become apparent that there is different stories going on here with each person. So I really don't know what to make of all of this. I don't know, why would you tell one person one story and then tell another person a different story? Why were we told about leases, but yet the neighbors weren't told about them? I don't understand that. And where did the sister come from all of a sudden, who's supposed to live over on Alter Street? Okay, but yet on the paper it says that he's the landlord. Well, make up your mind. Who is it? And so, I mean, it's there's more questions on top of questions, and you think you have an answer, and all you have is about 10 more questions. So, I don't get what is going on. I think that my former landlord was very shady. I don't think he turned this money over. He gave the security to the guy. But I don't think those of us who paid for March, I don't think he gave him the money. So that's one shady thing. From what I'm gathering, he didn't. And then another thing is, well, if this transaction was completely legit, why do we not really know who the hell owns the building? I mean, we didn't get anything with anybody's name on, well, this is your, landlord. This is like, whoever. This is in writing, what's going to happen. I mean, we were told about leases, but we never actually seen them. And just because I said that no, we weren't going to sign a new one doesn't mean nobody else would. So where all of a sudden does it come from not passing out leases to now all of a sudden they want to clear the building? So yeah, I have calls I have to make this morning. I definitely have to turn around and give a call to PP&L on that, because I don't like the fact that people were messing around with things, and for all appearances, they're not electricians. I mean, it could be, but why would you be like, okay, so you don't expect somebody to come up to you and ask you what you're doing or who you are or who you work with, but the guy didn't have to be a real douchebag about things either, and he could just said, oh, the landlord hired me. Like, okay, well, who do you work for? Okay. But I'm curious to see, like, what PP&L and that says, and then when I say, well, I think there was a private electrician here, but yet there was no name on a truck or anything, they're going to be very, very curious about that, because that's their equipment. And if this person, did something, they're going to definitely want to take a look at it, So I don't know, guys. It just seems to be more questions than answers, So I'm glad that Jeff came down to talk to us, because it seems we had two completely different experiences with this guy. And I didn't know that this guy had been messing around with the breaker box before, and it's like, why? Why would you be messing around with the breaker box? I'm thinking unless they wanted to do something with the thermostats here in the apartment. And even so, I'm thinking, wouldn't UGI have PP&L do something as far as that, if that's tied into the gas heat? I mean, I don't know. I have a bunch of calls I have to make today. Hopefully I hear back from this lawyer, and it's the same lawyer that I had dealt with when we were living in Freeland. And that was a shady situation too. The building was for sale, had been for sale for a couple years, but as our luck would have it, when we moved in, less than 2 months later, it was bought. And it turns out I knew the people who bought it. And I wasn't really crazy about them per se having bought the property, but, it was what it was. I had a lease that was actually, still had 10 months left on it, and they were like, oh no, we're not going to honor any lease. Okay. And then they proceeded that, oh, everybody has to pay for their own water and sewer. But no, we found out we actually legally didn't have to, because there was not separate meters. And that was originally included with my rent on my lease. So what happened with that scenario was, the water company, when we went down to the Freeland Water Authority and told them what was going on, they were really curious about it and said that legally we did not have to reimburse these new owners for the water and the sewer, because the bill was not in our name. And just because they put a paper in the mailbox saying this is going to go into effect December 1st, we didn't sign anything agreeing to it. And so when we were getting ready to move, my lease was up, I think it was August. Yeah, I believe it was July or August. And I think it was July. And I wound up having to stay in Freeland an extra 2 weeks, because when we came over here to look at the apartment, the original apartment that we looked at was already taken, And he said, well, if you can hang on for 2 weeks, I'm going to have 2 other apartments empty. Because he had told us, well, it was the first time in 8 years that the whole building is empty at the same time. And so that's when we moved upstairs. We originally looked at that apartment, but it was already technically being rented out. So, yeah, she dealt with us then, and she had told us what to do because we had stayed there for an extra 2 weeks. And they were squawking at us that we owed them, I don't know, whatever it was for the rent. And we turned around and said, well, we're not going to be here for an extra month. We, unfortunately, are stuck here for 2 more weeks. So I figured, okay, if I'm going to be here for half a month, I'm going to give you half a month's rent. But this lawyer told us, because they were never going to reimburse us because what they were doing was illegal, making us pay back, you know, this sewer and water, which amounted to over $200. So she told us to deduct it from a month's rent and give them a half a month's rent, get a money order, and have someone else give it to them. So that's pretty much what we did. The guy I was dating at the time, he literally like walked up onto her porch because they lived in the front of the building and we lived in the back up in the very top. He turned around, basically walked up onto her porch, handed her the money order, and she's yelling at him, oh, I can't take this, I can't accept this, I can't accept this. He ignored her till he got in the car and he says, what, I'm sorry, I'm a little hard of hearing. And I don't know if she ever did or didn't cash it. It wasn't my concern. I just had the proof that it was addressed to them and given to them, and what they chose to do with it is, you know, on them. So they never really took any kind of legal action against us. They did try to slander us on a group on Facebook, just for folks in Freeland. And they try to say that, like, we had put these BB holes in the windows and stuff. And, the funny thing was, you know, we stole their refrigerator. Now, mind you, when we moved in that apartment, there was no stove, no fridge. And I went through Catholic Social Services, who put us in touch with the Sophia Cox Foundation, who got us a refrigerator. And that refrigerator was for us. It was not for the landlord, which meant that we had every right to take it with us when we moved, because it was bought for us. And I, in turn, paid it forward and gave it to someone whose refrigerator had actually burnt out. And so, because I didn't, you know, trust the basement here, and I was afraid that it would get damaged storing it downstairs here, which it probably would have. So I just paid it forward to someone who had need for it. And everybody laughed, because everybody that knew us knew where we got our refrigerator from, how we got it, who delivered it even, where it was even purchased at. And another thing that was hilarious too is they put, you know, these pictures up, and yet again, friends of ours over there in Freeland turned around and jumped right on this woman's post and said, you are very full of shit, because she took pictures of that apartment when they moved in. And also, we knew a girl who had lived in that apartment prior, and whose boyfriend actually put the BB holes in the inner glass in the kitchen window and in the parlor window. There was actually a police report that had been filed in the Freeland Police Department, where he got arrested for that because him and her had had a fight. And he was just taking his frustration out, so he was shooting at the windows in the apartment real swift. So, like, a lot of people turned around and said, you know, hey, you're full of shit. Those windows were like that when she moved in. And the girl whose boyfriend had done that turned around and said, you're a damn liar. Those windows were like that because I was living there when that happened. that was my ex-boyfriend who did that damage. They rented that apartment. Yous were supposed to fix the windows. Yous never did. And so when they got a lot of backlash for a lot of the shit that they were saying that we damaged in the apartment, no, because the pictures that I took of every room, everything in that apartment, compared it to the pictures I took when we left, it was the same. The only one difference, there were stray cats that came around. And I didn't know that there was actually a problem with stray cats around that property. So Oreo, towards the end, like right before we moved, started spraying by our bottom door. And I think he was doing that because there was all these stray cats that were coming up and sometimes sleeping on the top of our steps. So it got really like bad with him doing it that I had to remove a small piece of tile. And I was scrubbing literally like straight wood right there. And I would have replaced the tile. It wouldn't have been expensive at all to go to Ollie's Outlet and get 2-3 pieces of tile, lay it down, and, you know, attach it. It was the idea that the strays were really, I guess, getting to him, and that's why he started doing that, because he's neutered. So, you know, when she brought that up, my one friend turned around and said, yeah, and it was also one of your cats who ran away from you and came to her door, and she was feeding your cat because she said your cat was so skinny it looked like it hadn't eaten in a week. So this lady, when she realized her and her fiance were just not getting anywhere with bashing us, they basically took the post down, and we came back to town. We left the group. But just to say, it does help, and there is truth in that you should always take pictures when you move into a place and when you leave. Now, thank goodness I have plenty of pictures of this apartment and videos. So, you know, I also have questions too. What happens as far as our security? Because there is apparently a very fine line when it comes to, like, my thought always was, well, if you're being evicted, you forfeit your security. Come to find out, not necessarily. It depends on what you're being evicted for. And if it's just basically because, quote unquote, they want to fix the property up, they really can't withhold your security on you because you didn't do any damage. And here's an issue too. If this person just bought this property, we've lived here 3 years, how would they know what is or isn't damage? Because Tony didn't go around taking pictures. I don't know. It's just like a never-ending saga. So on top of regular videos I'm going to be posting, trust me guys, I'll be updating as things go along, because I have a feeling this is like a rabbit hole, and we just started going down it, and goodness knows how messed up this all really is going to be. So, you know, good night guys. I just wanted to give you guys an update of like what I found out tonight, which was really, really bizarre. And who knows what more I'm going to find out when I talk to this lawyer. I mean, it's just really, it's crazy. So, good night guys. See y'all on the next one.